If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let Jacob Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call Jacob Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428. And welcome in, everyone, to a big edition of the Labor and Energy Show with JDoc and Krausey. JDoc, good morning to you. Nice to have you here. Let's jump right into it. We've got a great show lined up. 4 guests are going to be with you. We're going to cover a lot of ground in this edition of the Labor and Energy Show.
No question, Joe. And you know, it's obviously we have a packed show, and so it's a huge issue. It's a huge topic. It's exciting. Okay, the Energy and Innovation Summit at Carnegie Mellon Hall that took place on July 15th. Okay, an air of optimism in Pennsylvania and beyond. And we're ecstatic to have on a heavyweight lineup. Rob Baer, President, Pennsylvania Building and Construction Trades. Jim Welty, President, Marcellus Shale Coalition. Jim Snell, Business Manager, Steamfitters Local Union 420. And John Bain, who's the Director of Government Affairs for EQT Corporation. And like I said, the conversation is going to be about the PA Energy and Innovation Summit. And there's so many exciting things going on. You talk about AI and data centers, okay? And so many really good things coming down the pike that are going to impact the general public, okay? The public, the citizens of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and beyond, because Pennsylvania is such a big part of the landscape of energy in the United States and globally, okay? And so that huge, and of course, workforce, jobs, our labor workforce, our communities, jobs in the communities, and really just an expanding energy landscape coming. And it's and so with the lineup of individuals who were at the summit, second to none. So excited about it, Joe.
Yeah, really good show. You see scrolling across the screen if you're watching the program, the Labor and Energy Show with JDoc and Krausey, now available on Apple TV, Roku TV, and Fire TV, as well as right here. If you're listening to us, you can also listen to this episode and our entire catalog of the Labor and Energy Show on Apple or Spotify. Just search the Labor and Energy Show. We will get to a commercial break here, a quick commercial break. We'll pause for a second. On the other side, JDoc and the panel. This is the Labor and Energy Show with JDoc and Krausey. Back in a moment.
Welcome to the jet setters and the high rollers, to the thrill seekers and the night owls. Welcome to everything you could possibly want on one 5-mile island. Welcome to the Wildwoods. Book your stay today.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let Jacob Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call Jacob Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Labor and Energy Show on the Jacob Media Network. We've got a fantastic broadcast. We are packed today. Like I said, Rob Baer, PA Building Trades, Jim Welty, Marcellus Shale Coalition, Jimmy Snell, Steamfitters Local 40, and John Bain, EQT Corporation. Gentlemen, welcome to the broadcast. Nobody here is a stranger to the broadcast, but today is going to be all about the Pennsylvania Energy and Innovation Summit, which took place at Carnegie Mellon on July 15th, and really was an unprecedented event. And I like to go around the horn. Normally, what we do is we'll introduce everybody, ask everybody everybody knows who's on this panel right now. Okay, and so for listeners who may not know. Okay. And I'll go to Rob Baer and then Jim Welty. What was the overall purpose? What was the Pennsylvania Energy and Innovation Summit? Rob, if you will, first, please.
So, working with Senator McCormick, the idea was to bring a lot of big investment people into Pennsylvania to show them that Pennsylvania was open for business and to build out energy, and it was across the gamut. We got announcements for natural gas. We got announcements for hydro. We had the announcement of restarting the Crane Clean Energy Center. And it was all about data, AI, and the need for power. And, it takes private equity investment to spur economic development. And you got to be able to show a positive ROI for the people investing, and that's really what, in a nutshell, this whole summit was about.
Jim Welty, talk about it from your point of view, and what did it represent for you?
Yeah, so we need to think of this in the terms of what's the new economy going to look like. And I think it was Eric Schmidt, who was the former CEO of Google, that said it best. He said AI is going to be the most transformative technology since electricity. So the new economy that we're moving into is going to be based on AI, which requires a lot of data in these data centers. And we're in a global race here in the United States to be the leader in the new economy. And I think what Senator McCormick wanted to do, and what he did so effectively, along with everyone else that joined him, was position Pennsylvania to be the ground zero for the development of the new economy, utilizing our very own resources, because AI and data centers take a lot of energy, and there's nowhere better situated in the United States, and quite frankly the globe, than Pennsylvania to host this new economy and what's going to drive the new economy.
Jimmy Snow, you and I were talking. In fact, we were talking a couple of days ahead of time. We're just on an unrelated topic, and you would you brought the summit up, and we're excited about it. What did it mean to you? And certainly talk about the air of optimism at the summit.
Joe, I was honestly like a kid on Christmas morning at that summit. We've had our share of downturn, I guess you could say, over the last handful of years. But to see the people that Senator McCormick brought into that building, okay, these weren't just representatives of multiple companies. These were CEOs. They were CEOs. And like Jim Welty just said, and Rob Baer, this was the announcement that Pennsylvania is open for business. And that's what Governor Shapiro's been saying for quite a while. And, and to see Governor Shapiro and Senator McCormick sitting side by side and agreeing that Pennsylvania is open for business and let's get moving. And for me, we're all about jobs, right? Putting people to work, uplifting communities. I can tell you just from the announcement that Governor Shapiro made back in the beginning of June, the Amazon project, $30 billion project, 3 different sites. One of the sites is right in my backyard in Bucks County. This is a 10-year project. So just to prepare for that, I just brought in 100 men and women, through I organized quite a few people, and I have a new class of apprentices coming in August. Actually, they just started last week, but it's 100 people within like 2 months, preparing. And these announcements, they're just like the tip of the iceberg here.
Yeah, no question about it. And John Bain, obviously EQT had a big part in what was going on. Okay. Before we get into that, what was it like, in a sense, being in that room with the leaders that Jimmy Snell's talking about? Okay, everybody on this panel, and you're talk about bipartisan, okay, but multi-industry, okay, and you're talking about labor and energy and Democrats and Republicans all for a common goal. What was that experience like, okay, when you talk about an air of optimism for the future.
Yeah, it was great. I initially thought everybody was there because it was my birthday.
Well,
apparently it wasn't about me.
We were back at the house with the cake, and
but it was incredible to be in that room, and I think it's a long time coming. Have to give a huge thank you to Senator McCormick. But like you said, this was not a partisan event, which was refreshing to see. The governor was there. I know Senator Fetterman participated in a few different aspects of the. Basically, it was a 2-day event. There were things going on outside of the main conference itself, but just to see people coming together and having candid conversations that led to real announcements on projects right here in Pennsylvania. We have the natural gas. EQT, just as one operator, we produce the equivalent of 1 million barrels of oil a day of natural gas, and that's just us. And we made several major announcements at the summit, but the way it all came together was tremendous. When you have Josh Shapiro and President Trump at the same event, people are paying attention.
Well, it's funny because Governor Shapiro has boasted an all the above energy platform and future. Okay, at the summit. Okay, talk about his key sentiments and what message did he send to both labor and industry? Rob Baer, if you will, sir.
So I think the message Josh sent was even before the summit. We've been working diligently with the governor since he took office. We've been preaching our energy policy of all the above. And, we have worked with some of the environmental community to try and come to understandings. And when the governor agreed to permit those 7 combined cycle units at Homer City for 7 new natural gas plants, that sent a message throughout the industry that the governor of Pennsylvania was more than willing to have an all the above energy policy. And that also, I truly believe, led Senator McCormick to see that and say, let's reach across the aisle. Let's work together. We know we need to do the data. We know we need to do the AI. We know we need to do the energy in conjunction with it. And from that announcement, you saw that day that, Constellation, yep, we're going to restart Crane, the former TMI. We're going to put $600 million in Limerick to increase the output down there. We're going to be doing natural gas-fired generation. We're going to be doing hydroelectric. Google's committed to rebuilding those 2 big hydro stations on the Susquehanna and Lancaster County. So I truly think that this started even months before, when the governor took a very serious approach to saying, we can't hunker down, we got to move forward, and it's got to be all the above. And quite frankly, I know the governor took a lot of heat for that, right? But that's why, and it's no secret, I'm a Josh Shapiro fan. I work with a guy, and he had no problem understanding the need to utilize natural gas, nuclear, hydro, all the above. And I believe that's what sent the signal that Pennsylvania was truly open for business.
It's interesting, this whole, with renewables coming in to the markets over obviously the decades, there's been a lot of push, right? And a lot of, aggressive movement towards our traditional energy industry, our energy security, and our energy jobs and independence. It's funny, though, because now AI is coming in, okay? And with AI coming in, it's the same thing. You can't deny it. And in a sense, obviously there's not only no denying it, okay? Like you said, it is the future. Jimmy Snell, do you think that has taken a burden off in a sense, the constant attacks? And by the way, it's the reason the Labor and Energy show started with individuals. Jimmy, I believe you were on the first show when the PES refinery folks came on. They were getting shut down after 1 out of 33 units were down. And so that's why we got in. The attacks were ridiculous. Well, now here we go. We have AI. It's not going anywhere. and it's a force to be reckoned with. Talk about your disposition there.
Yeah, and you're right. You bring that up, the PES. I mean, that was a little over 6 years ago, right? Boy, how time flies to see how far we've come, right? And I don't think this country has a choice. I mean, yeah, maybe we'll get involved in the AI race. No, it's if it's not us, if it's not Pennsylvania, it's China all day long, right? So, to see Senator McCormick and the governor and others, pull everyone together and everyone's come to the realization that we can't let that happen. We have to be number one, the United States, when it comes to the AI race. And why not Pennsylvania, right? We'll lead the charge. And, historically, we build stuff here in this state, big stuff, right? We power the country, we power the world. So, just to see politicians, again, Senator McCormick and Governor Shapiro, put differences aside and just concentrate on getting this state going and moving in the right direction. And I got to tell you, seeing the two of them on that panel, speaking in unison, it was, you talk about a breath of fresh air. And I tip my cap to each individual, the senator and the governor, for stepping up and putting politics aside. And this is all about raising the state, raising communities, and giving people opportunities to get into the trades. And it's not just a trade, business as a whole, and it just, again, this is just the beginning here. This is just the start. It's, how about it? Just within a little over a month, you had between that, the governor's announcement with Amazon and Senator McCormick at Carnegie Mellon with the $90 billion, $120 billion worth of projects. And these aren't like maybes or possibilities. This stuff's happening. It's moving and moving fast. It's here now.
And what's interesting about it is our policymakers have a leg to stand on. In other words, they're no longer just hanging out there for the environmental left to take them down. This is a game-changing situation, and obviously, our traditional energy industry has been, hung out to dry. Okay, that situation changed. Okay, Jim Welter, you have the Shale Insight event, massive event, exciting event. I had the pleasure of being there, I believe, last year. They did ask me to exit the building 2 hours after I came in. Security was all over. Forget it. I can't talk about it. But it's an incredible event. Talk about the summit, okay, and how it's impacting the Shale Insight. You've got a great list of speakers, okay, and talk about the air of optimism that's going to be there, okay, because of a lot of the exciting discussions and announcements that were made at the summit.
Yeah, and I got to agree with everyone on the panel here. Good jobs and leading from an economic perspective is not a red or blue state or issue. It is a America issue. It's a Pennsylvania issue. And that's what we're facing. And we've got this great opportunity in front of us, and seeing both Governor Shapiro and Senator McCormick working together to ensure that Pennsylvania is well positioned is a breath of fresh air. And I think the optimism coming out of the Energy Summit, going into our Shale Insight Conference next month, is what's really fueling the interest in the drive. We are looking at record numbers at attendance. This is a global gathering to talk about the Appalachian Basin and the natural gas production and utilization here in Pennsylvania. And we're excited about hosting it once again this year. This is our 15th year. JDoc, you're always welcome. You will never get kicked out. I know you've done some live broadcasts from there.
Yeah.
So you are always welcome. But we're excited about it. We've got a really good partnership with our friends in the building trades who are sponsoring the event, along with many companies. And it's going to be a great event on the heels of the summit in July.
Fantastic. Absolutely. and John Bain. So Pennsylvania is being described as as the key to America's energy and AI future. Okay, tell our listeners, if you will, why is Pennsylvania so critical to both energy dominance and AI driven growth?
Yeah, it starts with upstream with natural gas development. We have a Saudi Arabia of natural gas right here under our feet. As I said earlier, EQT alone, we're producing the equivalent of 1 million barrels of oil per day. And it's massive. The opportunity that we have in front of us is massive. And right now we're in a position where market forces are finally starting to overcome political forces. We've been put in a box for years where the political forces with different mandates, even the PJM price cap that's in place right now, it stifles those market forces that send the signals that show that we need to build out natural gas fired generation. We need to build out infrastructure. We have to build out transmission lines, and we have to do it quickly. The only resource that can do that and meet that demand today is natural gas at scale, quickly, today. So that's the key, JDoc, that we have the resource. We can move quickly. Jim and Rob and their members can build things very quickly, and that's going to be critical to building out this data center evolution, because these data centers, they're very sensitive projects. They need concrete timelines, and they need to be built, and we have to be ready to scale up. And we're here as EQT and the industry as a whole. We're here to deliver and provide the resources needed to scale quickly and put people to work.
Rob Baer, if you would, and Jimmy Snell brought this up. Talk about, elaborate on that and talk about the workforce, okay, that we have here that makes these plans possible, okay, and the vast community of building trades members and leaders that are, hitting the ground running.
So we have approximately 130,000 members across Pennsylvania, across all specters of the building trades. And, they're ready to build. They're ready to go. The other thing we have is we have attractive packages that will bring travelers into the area to help supplement the workforce from additional states. And, that's a big component when a company looks at investing in an area. Do we have the workforce to build it? And I'm lucky. I get to travel all sides of Pennsylvania, north to south, east to west. I know all my building trades leaders. I know their manpower. And I've had a lot of discussions with these companies early on, along with the governor, on do we have the people to build it? Can we attract the people to build it? And it uniquely positions Pennsylvania to be that leader, and having Jim Weldy and John Bain on, they've worked with our guys for years. They know what we can do. They've seen it. So they advocate, hey, if you're going to build here, partner up with the trades. They're hard men. They're good men. They build. The brothers and sisters of the trades, they get up every morning, they go to work. We give them a great product at a fair price. And like John said, these projects happen quickly. They take lots and lots and lots of manpower. But it's critical to have them online.
No question. And Jimmy Snell, I know you have to leave us in a minute. And so the steam fenders are on the front lines of energy and infrastructure projects. Okay. Talk about, obviously, you mentioned about organizing and bringing in that, obviously the new apprentice class and all the new technology. How will your members be affected, and talk about the excitement within your organization?
Well, JDoc, trust me, as I mentioned earlier, we've had a rough go at it, the last 6 years or so, when it comes to building projects. And like John Bain mentioned, market forces now have taken over, and that's a good thing, right? So my members have been waiting for this for quite a while. I've been talking about it for quite a while. And listen, it's, I joke around like, hey, Senator, hey, Governor, don't forget about Pennsylvania here, because other states were kind of ahead of the game, so to speak. But, boy, did we catch up fast, and I believe we'll be overtaking many states when it comes to, the amount of data centers and AI coming into the state. But, for us, these projects, right, like Rob Baer mentioned, they take large vast of manpower. And these projects are working overtime right off the get-go. So for an organization like mine, that's music to my ears when it comes to, filling the coffers, your pension fund, your health and welfare, and so on. And, and there's a trickle down effect, and it's about, you're now, there's a comfort level, you have that work in your territory. And You're going to have it for quite a while. There's a comfort level. And I think every member of every local union in the state feels the same way. Every business manager, when we have the work, we're able to bring in more apprentices. We're able to look. My goal was to double the normal size every 6 months, the amount of apprentices. I just did that, but I want to triple it. And how can I do that? Well, if the work's coming, and the work's here for the foreseeable future. And I mentioned that project in Bucks County. That's not going to be the only project. There's some other things brewing down in the southeast part of the state, as well as the entire state. I just was at a conference with my counterpart, Jim Enders from Harrisburg, and we were talking all about this. That's all we talked about. And I believe Rob was right there. And, and to hear Jim, it's just mind boggling. He's got 6 of these big projects scheduled in his territory. That's just in the middle part of the state there, so it's just, economically, I'm so excited for the state. And, it's definitely exciting for sure for the foreseeable future.
So I know Jimmy's got to he's got to take off, but it's got a text from him. Your ratings are about to hit the floor. I got to jump off. Jimmy, thanks so much, obviously, for joining the program, man. And we're excited. We're excited for you and for everybody. Yeah. We're going to continue the Labor and Energy Show after the break. We'll see you in a minute.
Welcome to the Jet Setters and the High Rollers, to the Thrill Seekers and the Night Owls. Welcome to everything you could possibly want on one 5-mile island. Welcome to the Wildwoods. Book your stay today.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let Jacob Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call Jacob Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
Welcome back to the Labor and Energy Show here on the Jacob Media Network. We're proud to now be available on Apple TV, Roku TV, and Fire TV via the NetStream app. We want to thank Jimmy Snell, business manager, Steam Fitters Local 420, for being on the program. Gentlemen, and of course we have Rob Baer, PA Building Trades Council President, John Bain, EQT, Jim Welty, President, Marcellus Shale Coalition. Guys, we've talked about how Pennsylvania, has specific advantages: natural gas reserves, skilled trades work, a skilled trades workforce, obviously research institutions like Carnegie Mellon that position PA to lead this transformation. Okay. And we're very, very excited about that. Let's talk a little bit more about the AI data centers and the energy demand. Okay. AI and data centers were obviously a major part of the summit, to say the least. Okay. How were they, in particular, discussed and positioned at the summit? Jimmy Snell, Rob Baer, if you will, sir.
So, it's kind of like the cart and the horse. You can't put the cart before the horse. You got to have the power before you build the data centers. So it was discussed about the timeline of the build out. And that's really what was critical with all the above energy policy. One of the projects we forgot to mention, the Bruce Mansfield old coal burner, just announced, what was it, John, 3 weeks ago, a month ago, that's being converted to natural gas. That's another $3.5 billion project, because to build data centers in Western PA, we need the energy, hence the Homer City project for kind of West Central, TMI for in the East. I expect there's going to be, that 600 additional megawatts out of Limerick is going to help spur data in the East, the hydroelectric in Lancaster County. So the power portion is the absolute most critical part to data and AI. And we have to have the power infrastructure to support the build out of the AI. It has to happen, and what was really kind of interesting to me was, after meeting and talking to the people from Amazon and the people from Google and meeting with the people from Microsoft, they have this all above energy approach too. But one of the things that they didn't forget, and this, and I don't want this to sound trivial, but it's the truth, they've also are looking at adding a component of renewables on those properties, right? Because, as they said, we know we consume massive amounts of energy. We want to be good stewards of the environment also. So, you're talking companies with a market capitalization in the trillions of dollars, but they're also understanding, look, we need the natural gas, but we're willing to help put that renewable component in there so that we can say we're doing everything we can to build out Pennsylvania, build out the economy, build out AI, do it safely, do it quickly, do it with the building trades guys. And at the same time, we get a positive impact on the environment. And this is what this show has been preaching since you guys invited me on.
Exactly. I mean,
right? We have been preaching all the above. We know we need the base load. We know we can't build out base load fast enough with these renewables. And you've heard me say that thousands of times. But we finally now are at that point with market-driven pricing and companies that say, we want to help. We want the power. We want the energy. We want to be known as good stewards. And we're looking at all the above, right? And out of that summit, when you got Republicans and Democrats, everybody sitting in that room talking about it, my biggest thing was, and I hate to say this, but I was sitting there like, for Christ's sakes, we've been talking about this for 6 years. I swear to God, there's times I went home and drew a circle on my wall and said, beathead here. And now we're there. And, and I'm going to say this out loud. With Senator McCormick and Governor Shapiro both being serious about this, and they started talking the same thing that we have been.
Yeah.
All the above. All the above. All of a sudden, all those hurdles that we've been busting through mysteriously evaporated. And we're going to build out Pennsylvania. John and Jim are going to provide us with natural gas. Their companies are going to be able to employ people. We're going to utilize that gas in state. We're going to build out Pennsylvania. We're going to create thousands of new jobs, the upstream, downstream, just from the plants and the AI alone. And what was really something is these companies are also now really talking about community benefit agreements. You look at what Amazon announced in partnership with the school districts and the local community colleges, and they're pushing our apprenticeship programs. Okay, my God, finally, and I'm that kind of guy. I am. I'm a hyperactive individual. Everybody knows me. I get up in the morning, my brain's like string theory. It's all over. But I'm thinking, for God's sakes, we finally got here.
It's a great feeling. And I like that you mentioned, obviously, renewables being involved. One of the things that I've, and obviously being on with Jim and John, natural gas has been, has spearheaded the lowering of emissions across the globe. Okay. Yep. So it's at the forefront of those conversations. I could say this, since we did start this show and the Alliance, I haven't heard one of our members, one of our traditional energy members, one of our labor leaders talk, like the environment wasn't a priority. Okay. When it comes to the efficiency of our projects and our workforce and what we do. Jim, we've been on this show for about 30 minutes and we haven't talked about Donald Trump. And he, oh, by the way, he was there. Okay. What was his message at the summit as it pertains to Pennsylvania?
Yeah, and I think his message was consistent with Senator McCormick and Governor Shapiro, and that is we have to unleash our energy resources. We sit atop one of the largest natural gas deposits in the world. If the Appalachian Basin were a country, we'd be the third largest country in the world in terms of energy production, third only behind the United States as a whole and Russia. So we've got this great energy potential that both Senator McCormick, Governor Shapiro, and President Trump have understood and that we need to unleash. And as Rob Baer said, we've been talking about this opportunity for a long time. We've been talking about these resources and the opportunity to be utilizing them for a long time. And seeing that finally come to fruition, it's exciting. And it's exciting not just because of the industry, but because of the jobs and the economic opportunity it brings. And I got to tell you, JDoc, I've in my 30 plus years in this business, I've never seen anything like that energy summit with everybody coming together with one goal in mind, and that is to position Pennsylvania in the United States as the leader in the new economy, as I said earlier, and using our resources that are right here, our domestic resources right under our feet to power that new economy and power those jobs that come with it. And it's an exciting time to see that finally come to fruition. Look, we're throttled back here in Pennsylvania. We're the largest producer in the Appalachian Basin by far. We're throttled back because we can't get gas to markets. Building those markets right here, using Pennsylvania workers and our building trades to build those downstream opportunities is a significant advantage. And we've got a lot of energy that we can turn on like that if we've got a place to use it. Using that right here in Basin, that's what we want to do. That's what creates the jobs, and that's what's going to create the new economy and the opportunities in the future.
John Bain, jump in there.
Yeah, when it comes to the environment, and I'll start with EQT, we were the first largest producer of natural gas at scale to reach net zero emissions. And that is something that is a big focus of our organization. We do a lot of monitoring. We do a lot of projects to lower emissions. And that's just one piece of the emissions puzzle or pie. The other thing to think about is since the shale gas revolution started, natural gas has lowered CO2 emissions more than solar, wind, and other renewables combined. We are the reason that emissions are coming down. And people talk about global warming. Well, if everyone across the globe would do what we're doing here in the United States, we would not have these issues that people are pointing to. I mean, China is ramping up their coal-fired power production every single day. And that's something that, we should be proud of here in Pennsylvania and here in the United States, that we have this resource that is clean and abundant, because we are going to need a lot of it. By 2030, this AI power demand could be the equivalent of every single household that's being powered in America. So that could double. So that's why we need to use this resource, and we need to use it quickly. And again, it's going to put Rob's guys to work, and I think we're well positioned right now.
No question about it. And when you get into that China conversation, and so we're starting we're going to start a Facebook group, with the Labor and Energy Alliance, Voices for America's Energy Security. Okay. And one of the things that is, I did some research. You realize since the environmental movement started, and we're all environmentalists on this call, we are, in other words, we all care about it. Okay. It's a priority and we work incredibly hard, but for some reason, there's a huge group of people that aren't listening or not reading the facts. But since the environmental movement has gone into overdrive, the emissions across the planet have increased. Okay. Why? Because while we're busy governing and trying to shut ourselves down over here, you have China who are building, and by the way, their gas-fueled power plants are nowhere near as energy efficient as ours. Okay, so we're just giving them the ball. Okay, and I feel like it's divine intervention that AI and the data centers have come up out of the I mean, it obviously, like you guys have said, they've been talking about it for a long time. But we also now we have an ally, okay, and that ally, and we have a leg to stand on, because the way things were going, the attacks and the constant, we talk about common sense and energy, just unbelievable. And so, it has been incredible, and I feel strong that obviously, this is one of the most exciting times ever. Let's talk a little bit about private sector investments and commitments. Several major players, Google, Blackstone, Brookfield, Westinghouse, made big announcements. Okay, which investment stood out the most to you on the panel, and why? Jim Welty, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I don't know that there was any one that stood out. I think it was the comprehensive announcements that all came together, over the last several months, and that were announced at the summit. Nearly $100 billion of investment into Pennsylvania only means jobs and economic opportunity, and building Pennsylvania to lead the future. And to me, that's what stood out most, was everyone coming together to make those announcements to say, we see Pennsylvania as a place to do business. We want to do business here, and we want to lead from Pennsylvania.
Rob Bear?
I totally agree with Jim. It was the totality of the whole. One of the ones that caught my eye, which I found very interesting, was Westinghouse, when they said they were going to build 10 AP1000 baseload reactors for deployment across the country. Are we going to build one in Pennsylvania? Probably not. We're a deregulated state, but that's showing Pennsylvania. We manufacture them here. Pennsylvania is going to be helping the United States as a whole manufacture and deploy additional power resources across the country. And one of the other parts of that summit that, kind of got overlooked because it's in its infancy, we're talking about LNG exports too. For Pennsylvania, that's another avenue for John and Jim's producers to be helping lower global emissions, because we would be shipping that gas, as Jim said, the third largest natural gas reserve in the world, to Europe. We would be converting coal-fired powerhouses to clean burning natural gas. We'd be using John Boehner's net zero emission gas over there. Now, that puts Pennsylvania not just as a leader in emission controls in the East Coast, we're helping the whole planet, right? This is what was so exciting about the summit, because, you heard nuke, gas, hydro, geothermal, my God, the renewable component, right? It was all in there. And it's exactly what we have been preaching from day one. You can't isolate and live in a bubble. We talk about a global economy. Great. Do we talk about global emissions? No, we don't. We don't acknowledge the fact that, like you said, we're leading the charge when our compadres on the other side of the globe are just blowing shit up in the air, right? It's the truth. But using our gas here in Pennsylvania, and then using our companies deploying nuclear across the United States, taking our gas, liquefying it, sending it to Europe, all of a sudden, not only are we leading the AI transition, Pennsylvania is leading, helping clean up the global environment.
No question about it. I mean,
that was exciting to me.
John Boehner, talk about the practices and the efficiency, when it comes to our companies in the United States, okay, and how safety, security, emission standards are, like you mentioned, net zero, okay? But talk about the priority there that is, universal at this point.
Yeah, I'd say number one, the priority is that it's the right thing to do. And that's something that our company is focused on. We spend millions and millions of dollars doing things to lower our emissions that we don't have to do. In this basin, we have lower emissions across the board from all of our producers compared to other natural gas producing basins. So we do a cleaner no matter what. But the upgrades that we do, projects that we do, we did a large forestry project to bring down offset some of our emissions. And again, it's the right thing to do. But also in the United States, we have regulations that, keep the industry in check. And
Yes.
as long as those regulations make sense, we're fine following those rules. It's just there's certain policies out there where, again, the political forces are stifling the market forces, and that's something that isn't the right thing to do, because we are all focused on the same thing. We're all environmentalists, and we want to do things right.
And it's amazing. What do we call it? A backdoor way when you talk about the setbacks and all that. I think we make no mistake about it. Attacks and legislation and things like that. When you talk about the tailpipe emission standards, no, it's not a ban of gas cars, but you can't ride one. Okay, you're not going to, so all these types of legislations, guys, we only have 6 minutes left. Okay. I'd like to take 30 seconds before we get into permitting reform and talk about the public's benefits here. Okay. And of everything that we're talking about. Yeah, it's going to help labor and industry. And it's going to, help the world. But how do these events and the energy future that's here in Pennsylvania going to help our public in the Commonwealth? Rob Bear?
I can do it in less than 30 seconds. Lower electricity prices going forward in the future.
All right. Do we have two agreements there?
Yeah, and I would add as well the economic opportunities and the opportunities for jobs for the public, and it's that rising tide lifts all boats mentality. That as these jobs and these opportunities come online, it's going to create new opportunities for those communities. And you liken it to, and this was said at the summit. You think about when the first car was rolled out by Ford, and what that meant to the buggy industry and the buggy whip industry, and how that was lamented. But what you don't think about were all the new jobs that were created from that, from the manufacturing of the cars to the tires to the road construction. That's what we are facing here with AI coming online. We don't know yet all those opportunities that exist, but we know they're going to exist here in Pennsylvania, and the public's going to be able to take advantage of that. And what that means is more revenue for the state to do other things to attract more jobs and more job opportunities.
Okay, so let's talk about permitting reform. I know that was a major theme, okay, as it should be, okay. What is streamlining the permitting process? Why is it? Tell our listeners why it's so critical. Okay, for Pennsylvania's energy future, with everything we just talked about, and this is a national issue, huge. But talk and John Bain, if you will, talk about that.
Yeah, permitting is critical. I know I said this earlier. It's speed to market. We have to build these things and build them quickly. It shouldn't take several years to permit a natural gas fired power plant. We need the support of policymakers on both sides of the aisle to help move permits forward. On the federal level right now, permit reform is a big discussion. The same permit shouldn't have to be reviewed by 5 different agencies. So we really need to streamline the way things work. And Pennsylvania, we are making incremental progress in permitting, but there's much more we can do. And I think with the $90 billion of investment coming to the state, that will be more of a focus of the General Assembly. And I know there are some proposals out there specifically aimed at data centers, but right now it's speed to market. And I think if we can streamline the permitting process in Pennsylvania and across the country, we'll be in good shape. And I know it's a bipartisan effort at this point, which is a very good thing, because it's not just natural gas projects, it's renewable projects. And, if you think it's hard to build a pipeline, try building a transmission line.
No question. Rob, so Governor Shapiro has been on board with that. He's making strides here. And when you talk about, his efforts, how significant is that for the industries and obviously the workforce?
It's huge. Governor Shapiro has done more permanent reform in 2.5 years than probably any governor I can remember in the last 25. And he's also put people in his administration. I'll give a shout out to DEP, Jess Shirley. She's fantastic. She's working with the companies to get permits. And as John said, we need to go faster. We probably need even more streamlined permitting, but we are making those incremental steps. And it's been, for me, exciting to see that, we have an admin that's not going to shut us down. They're committed to it. We all know we'd like to be able to do it in 24 hours, but we can't do it in 24 hours.
No, yeah, but what's interesting, a lot of our projects in the United States, 24 hours, I know you just, in jest, but some of these projects are taking 10 years.
Oh, look, if you want it right now to try and site a baseload nuke through the NRC, it's 7 years to get site permitting.
I mean,
right?
Right.
We can't keep that up. There has to be a way at the federal level to also help our energy companies streamline and get that permitting. And when John said about a 500K transmission line, that's like pulling chicken's teeth, if you can find one, to get that done, because you're crossing multiple states. We have one right now from PA through Maryland to Virginia. Is it important? Yes. We had a proposal, one from Kansas to Indiana. It's probably not going to happen. And these are the things that back up the infrastructure of this country.
I mean, pipelines have been something that we've been fighting for here for ages. There was obvious shortage, especially on the East Coast. Permitting, and of course, you're going across multiple states. It's a nightmare. Jim, kind of talk about that. And when you talk about pipelines, do you think this, the age of AI and a lot of the things that we're doing, and the natural gas and the energy that we're going to need will help that process?
Yeah, and I got to tell you, this gets back to the policy issue, right? There are two sides of the policy coin. There are those that want to streamline the process, improve the process, and make sure that these jobs get done. And there are those that want to put every barrier up possible and imaginable to ensure that we don't use the God-given resources that we have beneath our feet. And that's where we face challenges. And who pays for that? It's the consumer. When you can't build the infrastructure to get the energy to market, it's the consumers who pay for that. And that's why in the Northeast, we can't get a pipeline up to the Northeast, because they've created a barrier to getting that energy up there. They pay more for their energy up there than we do here. But you hear this terminology of build, baby, build. And I think Toby Rice at EQT said it best. It really is build, baby, build. We've got to build the infrastructure so that we can ensure that we are capitalizing on this opportunity. But that's why Pennsylvania is so important. We don't need to build those interstate pipelines if we can use the product right here under our feet, use Pennsylvania workers, use the gas that we have to create this opportunity. It minimizes those challenges that you have in building out those pipelines. You do the short haul pipelines as opposed to the long haul pipelines to ensure that we're building those job opportunities, both on the data center AI side as well as on the manufacturing side.
Mm-hmm. So, guys, we got about a minute left, and I just want to add it. So the summit was such an exciting an event. Optimism, bipartisan, multiple industries, tons of investment. Do you see the summit becoming an annual or a reoccurring event? How do you keep the momentum going? I'll go with Rob first, and we'll go to Jim, and we'll roll it out with John.
I don't know if we'll see one every year in PA, but I think every 2 years I could envision something like this, because that gives everybody time to see where 24 months of the market has been, what we've built out, and where we need to continue to get better. And I think if we were on a schedule such as that, and we had all those leaders and policymakers sitting at that table, even every 2 years, I think you would see Pennsylvania continue to grow at an exponential rate, and the Commonwealth would flourish.
Jim Welty.
Yeah, I think Senator McCormick and his leadership has made it clear that he wants this to be a recurring event, highlighting Pennsylvania opportunities as it relates to the jobs and the job opportunities, the economic opportunities. using our domestic energy resources. And yes, we're in all the above, but natural gas is ready to deliver, and we can deliver today. We've got to ensure that those policies are straight. And I think working with Governor Shapiro, Senator McCormick, and President Trump, we can make sure Pennsylvania leads the future.
John Boehner, take us home.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think we will see another summit, may not be next year. The thing is, we have to move quickly. We have to get more natural gas out of the ground. We have to build, baby, build, or we'll have a summit in a few years when we're trying to figure out what the heck we did wrong.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you. Good way to end it. I want to thank you all for being on the program. Rob Baer, Jim Welty, John Boehner. We really appreciate your time. We're excited. It's a time of optimism here. And obviously, by the way, I just got a text from Dave Callahan. He thinks it's a conspiracy that they didn't launch. They waited till Jim Welty was in office until they did the summit. I'm going to get back to him on that. Guys, thanks so much for being on the program.
Thank you. Appreciate it. See you guys.
We'll have more from the Labor and Energy Show in just a minute.
Welcome to the Jet Setters and the High Rollers, to the Thrill Seekers and the Night Owls. Welcome to everything you could possibly want on one 5-mile island. Welcome to the Wildwoods. Book your stay today.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let Jacob Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call Jacob Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428. And back here on the Labor and Energy Show with JDoc and Krausey. JDoc, I got to be honest and tell you, sir, there are some times that I want to be involved in the conversation, and then there are other times that I just want to listen. And boy, was it great to listen to the conversation that you had today with everyone. I am super motivated and super psyched to hear what you guys talked about today. Well done.
Well, I mean, Joe, you know, it's about the energy future in Pennsylvania. Okay. And you know, we talked about the summit and the recent Pennsylvania Energy and Innovation Summit at Carnegie Mellon that occurred on July 15th. And I got to tell you, and you know, you and I have done a lot of broadcasts where leadership is important on that broadcast. And this in particular, this show, when you talk about what occurred at the summit, we talked about you know, the atmosphere, bipartisan, multi-industry, labor, energy. Okay, you're talking about Governor Shapiro, you know, being on board, talking about an all the above energy policy and future Pennsylvania's strategic role, AI data centers that are really, I mean, AI has been the game changer and the equalizer. Okay, and then of course we talk about jobs, workforce, the building trades, and private sector investments, and so that are coming to Pennsylvania. And so you know, it doesn't get more, you know, impactful than this. And then we ended up there with a conversation on permitting reform, because you can't do any of this, okay, unless you can get the permits to do it. And we talked about some projects, energy projects over the years that have taken 10 years. Obviously, you know, we can't let that happen. So, and then the impact on everyday Pennsylvanians, Joe. Obviously, Rob Baer at the end there talked about, you know, more access to energy, more economical. It can't get any better than that. So it's a win-win for everybody. And it was a great show. Obviously, want to thank our guests on the broadcast, you know, for doing a great job. And Rob Baer, Jim Welty, Jim Snell, and John Boehner. Just a fantastic broadcast.
Yeah, and I'll end with this. The one thing, I think it was Jim Welty who said this, and I think he was 100% spot on and 100% right. If you ever show up at a summit, you may or may not get in the building, or if you're in the building, they may launch you out of the building.
The damn security, Joe. The damn security.
No, good stuff. Great job by you today. This is, we hope you enjoyed this edition of the Labor and Energy Show with JDoc and Krausey. A special thanks to everybody who was part of the panel today. Leave this program feeling motivated. Until next time, I'm Joe Krause. See you next time, everyone.
Welcome to the Jet Setters and the High Rollers, to the thrill seekers and the night owls. Welcome to everything you could possibly want on one 5-mile island. Welcome to the Wildwoods. Book your stay today.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let Jacob Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call Jacob Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.